Good day, everyone, and welcome to another session in EGW, Engaging with God's World. What we are going to be doing in this session and the next, they are going to be working together. So we're trying to get to the point of what is a biblical worldview. But before we do that in this session, we first have to cover the concept of worldviews in general. What is a worldview? Why do worldviews matter? Now, some of you may be quite familiar with worldviews and with the concept, and for others, it will actually be quite new and you've actually never thought along those lines. So I'm going to try and not lose you either way in this session, and hopefully this will be something that whether you are new to this or whether you are quite familiar with it, it will be something that will be meaningful to you. Let me pray as we start. Lord, for this session too, we pray that you would allow us to understand better, see better, and connect with you and your word in a better way. Amen. So what we're going to be doing is what I'm going to try, because this is a little bit of a difficult idea for some people. I'm just going to try and come at it from various angles. So I'm just going to try various things to attempt to explain and give you a feel for what we mean with worldviews and why it's so important to be aware of our worldviews. So let me start in this way. I am going to show you a slide with a mistake in it. And by the way, if you are currently just listening to the audio version of this, it would be hugely helpful in this session, also the next, if you are able to rather look at the video, because these sessions are quite visual. Okay, so I'm going to show you a slide. There is a mistake in it. Press pause until you have found the mistake. It may take you quite a while. It took me for half an hour. So yeah, take a while. And don't move on until you have spotted the mistake. Now, if you have to ask, is this the mistake or not, then chances are you haven't found the mistake. So in other words, if you found the mistake, it'll be obvious. You will know. So you should be able to be sure about it. Are you ready? Here comes the slide. There you go. Press pause until you have found the mistake, even if it takes you a while. Good. So here is the mistake, or actually, here are the 3 mistakes. Now, what's in some ways scary about this is how difficult it is sometimes to see things properly. Okay, so this is right in front of us, it's in our faces, and yet it's difficult to spot the mistake. And notice, I also haven't distracted you. I explicitly asked you to look for the mistake, and yet for most of us, it would have taken quite a while. Now, let me try something else. Now, depending on which kind of screen you're looking at, this may or may not work, but have a good focused look at this picture. Can you see the black dots moving around? Now, if you can, are those black dots really there? Now, I think we know that they are not. So this is an optical illusion. And this is an example of how we can sometimes see things that are actually not there. And let me try a third one. Those squares, those horizontal and vertical lines, are they straight or are they curved? Now again, this is an optical illusion, and those black and white patterns are there to mess with your vision, with how you perceive things, and to show you that the grid is actually nicely straight. Perhaps I can show it in this way. If I just draw some vertical lines and some horizontal lines, and now if I take out the background, Can you see how those are all pretty straight? Okay, so the point is, I'm hoping this has been an interesting way to illustrate things that may well happen in real life. Okay, it's pretty harmless if it's just an optical illusion, but what if this happens in real life? What if sometimes we do not see things that are there? Or the opposite is, what if we sometimes think we're seeing things that are not actually there? Or what if we're seeing things in a distorted way? So all that just by way of illustrating that it's important how we see things, and that it's important that we see carefully, because we don't always see correctly the first time. Now, I've just got another few photographs or pictures just to play around with a little bit. So have a look at this. What's happening here? This looks like a rock that is floating in the air. How was this picture taken? Now, it turns out is that all that's happened is that I've turned the picture the wrong way around. And if we turn it the right way around, you can see what's actually happening. It's just a rock in a lake, basically. Here's another one. Now, here too, it's a question of perspective, and that what we first imagine it to be is not how it really is. So obviously what's happening in this particular case is that this is a house built on a hill. It's actually pretty straight, but the ground on which it's built is not straight. Or just to have more fun, look at this. Or here's another one. What's happening here? Now, this is an interesting one because it's actually deliberately designed to mess with your perception. So basically what this is, and it's actually quite a tourist attraction, it's a house that is, special house that has deliberately been built upside down, and then the furniture inside of it has been glued to the ceiling. And so basically the whole thing is there to create that illusion. If you then, take a picture of yourself and send it to your friends that way, it's there to create the illusion that you're walking on the ceiling. So sometimes the distortion or the deception is actually quite deliberate as well. Complete the word. You may say lover, you may say loser, depending on your come from. It matters how we see things. Here's another one which I found pretty amusing and insightful. The guy on the deserted island is happy to see a boat. The guy in the shipwrecked boat is very happy to see land. Here's another one. Just again, we're just playing around with it in various ways. What do you see? Take a moment to try and sort of figure out in your mind what is happening in this picture. And then let me complete the picture for you. Does this change the way you see things? Once you have a more complete view of a particular situation or issue, might it actually totally change how you think and feel about something? Here's another one. What do you see? Look carefully. Now, you may say, I see camels, and that is not totally wrong. But if you have a more careful look, you will notice that what you're actually seeing is shadows of camels. So what's happening here is this is a picture taken from, from an aeroplane or a drone, looking vertically down. And what's happening is that the afternoon sun is coming in from the side and then throwing shadows of camels onto the sand in the desert. So the actual camels themselves are those little white stripes that you are seeing because you're seeing them from the top, and then the rest is the shadows that they are casting. So this is an example of, when we see things, sometimes we see them half right, but not fully the way they are. Let's have another one. What do you see? Now, higher grade, those people who saw the world map as a pattern on the cow. Very good. But that's not actually the main point of what I'm trying to do with this slide. Basically, I'm giving you multiple choice. Do you see beef? Or do you see milk? Or do you see a sacred animal? Do you see lobola? Do you see an investment? Now, here's the point. How you see the cow is going to influence how you treat the cow. So it's going to make a huge difference how you see the cow. It's certainly going to make a huge difference to the cow, right? It matters what we see, because what we see doesn't just stay in our heads. What we see then also determines how we act and how we behave and what we do. What do you see? Now, yes, that is meant to be a DNA strand, so basically a cutout from a piece of a human gene, something that we all have in every cell of our bodies. But let me give you two choices here. Do you see the result of a mindless, purposeless process, or do you see the result of an intelligent, purposeful process? Here's the point. There are a lot of people, a lot more clever than you or I, a lot more educated than you or I, who choose the first option. But there are also a lot of people who are a lot more clever and a lot more educated than you or I, who choose the second option. Now, what's happening here? How can different people see the same thing and come up with different interpretations, different results? The answer must lie in the way we see things, and some come from that we already have, some prior beliefs or prior understandings or interpretations that we have, and that's going to influence what we see with every new thing. Here's another one. What do you see? Now, what you are looking at is the result of that devastating tsunami quite a few years ago. But what if I ask the question, why did it happen? Now, again, depending on where you come from, you might give different answers. You might give an answer of, well, there were tectonic plate shifts under the ocean, and there was an earthquake, and then this happened. This huge wave happened. Or you might say, well, this is Satan at work. Or you might say, this is God's judgment. Or you might just say, I don't know. Now, again, can you see, depending on where we're coming from, we might actually give different explanations. Some of us are more natural explanations, some of us are more supernatural explanation. I'm not now going to engage with, which of these explanations is right or wrong. I'm probably going to answer a little bit of I don't know on this one as well. I'm just trying to illustrate, though, that we give different interpretations. So I am now finally getting to the part that is in your handouts. What is a worldview? And very simplistically speaking, there's the world, and there's us looking at it, our view of it. And so the way we see it is our worldview. So this is not rocket science. It's the way we see the world. Except that I think what we need to realize is when I say world, I know I'm showing planet Earth, but what I mean is all of reality, everything that is. Okay, so how we see everything. And then also when I say worldview, I don't actually only mean something that we see or something that's just stays in the thought space, because it does involve more of us. Okay? It also involves how we feel about things. It involves our loyalties, our sense of identity and belonging, etc. So in your notes, my worldview is so much more than simply a view of the world. It includes the way I explain and interpret my observations and experiences. It includes the answers I have or don't have to life's big questions. So I don't know, in some ways, is also a little bit of a worldview. It includes the story or stories that I tell myself or that other people are telling me about myself, about others. It includes where I find my identity, my belonging, my meaning, my affirmation, my loyalties, my hopes and fears, what pulls or pushes me, how I think and feel about things, what has captivated my mind and my heart, the compass of my soul. Those are just some attempts to show that a worldview is something very, very deep, right? Very, very all of us. Here's another angle. If you would like to know what water is, would you ask a fish? And if not, why not? Now, the trouble with asking a fish about water is the fish will probably say, "What's water?" The point being that water is something that the fish swims in all the time. It's always around the fish. It's so much part of their daily experience that they don't even notice it anymore. So the fish will probably not be the best person to tell us about what water is. And perhaps with a worldview, it's a little bit like that as well. Okay, so there are certain things in life that we just regard as obvious or self-evident, or it's just the way things are, without thinking about it too much, because it's like the water that we're swimming in. And yet, if we're able to be that fish that asks, "No, hang on, what is this that I'm swimming in?" I think that will be a huge skill to have, because then you can discern better. You can evaluate, is this water healthy? Should I be going somewhere else? It's important to be able to recognize and discern what it is that we're swimming in. So you can see this thing of the worldview. It's a bit of a tricky thing. If I can change the metaphor, change the picture, I'm almost inviting us to take a step back and watch ourselves think. Now, for some of us, you know how to do this, or you have been grown up to do this. For others, this is actually a pretty strange experience to do that. But that's the invitation of today's session, that we take that step back and that we watch ourselves think. Here's another way of coming at it. Think of your trip to JBC. Now, I'm assuming that those trips have happened. Now, if you've done the entire thing so far online, then just think of a trip that you've made to some other place, right? And if you want to, just close your eyes, and I'm asking you to just come up with a picture from that trip. So almost a photograph of this trip. Can you imagine that photo? Have you got that in front of you? Now, that photograph, does it look more like this? Or does it look more like this? Does the difference make sense? So that first picture is more of a first-person view. Okay, so that's the way I see it and experience it through my own eyes. And the second view is more of a top-down view, what people might call a third-person view. So it's not how I see it, but how an observer might see the greater scene. Now, there are strengths of each of those views, right? We kind of need to be able to do both. The strength of the first view is that this is the way that life is lived. This is the way that we experience it. Whereas the advantage of the second view, of course, is that we are able to get a bigger picture. In that second view, you might be able to see what's coming around the corner, which you wouldn't be able to see in the first view. So it allows us to see more. So if you want, the one is a view from the ground, the other one is a view from the air. We need to be able to do both. Now, it would be interesting just by show of hands, like, how many people's picture was more like the first one, how many people had more the second one. The important thing is whichever one you didn't have, make sure that you are also able to see it in the other way, because both perspectives are important. Again, I'm back to your handout. I'm still on the first page because your handouts don't have all the pictures. A worldview is the answer that we give to life's big questions. And I've given a set of questions. This is my set. You may have a slightly different set. That's totally okay. So our worldview is how we answer questions about truth or reality and knowing. I think you can read the details in your own time. It's how we understand God. Okay? Who or what is God? What is he or she or it like? And then how we answer questions about ourselves, about where we come from, about where we're going, about who we are, and about our purpose. And then also how we answer questions of problem and solution. Basically, what's wrong with the world and how can it be fixed? There are very, very few worldviews. Actually, I can't think of any that basically say, no, things are the way that they should be. Everything's fine. So just about anybody on the planet will say, no, there's something wrong, and will have some idea on how it can be fixed. But where we are not agreed is what it is that's wrong, and therefore what the solution would be. Okay? So we generally agreed things are not the way they should be, but we are not agreed on the diagnosis, and therefore also not agreed on the remedy. But yeah, this is what a worldview is. It's how you answer these big questions. And I've also given some examples. I'm now over the page in page 2. Examples of worldviews. Now, this is not a complete set, but it's just to demystify this thing a little bit. Okay, so these are some possible main worldviews out there in the world. Now, you can see that some of these would be described as more religious. Others would be described as not religious. Okay, either way, they are worldviews. Either way, they are belief systems. Yeah, there's actually, in one sense, there is no such thing as an unbeliever. We all believe things. Why? Because we all, to some extent, have answers to those life's big questions that I gave you in the previous slide. Okay, we all believe something. And here are just some examples. Now, the danger of showing you a slide like this, though, is I don't mean us to start putting people into boxes. So just be aware of that actually, when it comes to worldviews, there are probably as many worldviews as there are people on the planet. Okay? The way you see things is not exactly the same way as I see things, or another Christian brother or sister sees things. Never mind somebody who's not a Christian. So there are nuances. Don't be too quick to put people in a box. Everybody has a worldview, whether held consciously or subconsciously. So most of us aren't aware that we have one, but we do. Whether developed or caught, there are not many people who go out and say, I'm going to develop a worldview or a belief system for myself. Most of us just catch a worldview like we catch a cold or like we catch the flu. Okay, it's just basically given to us by our environment, by our upbringing, by our family background or school background or church background or community background. Everyone has a worldview, whether it's coherent or not. So sometimes it doesn't make sense within itself. That can entirely happen. We sometimes believe different things that actually don't match up with each other very well. But you either choose a worldview or one is chosen for you, because we all get one. So we might as well be intentional about it and discerning about it and thoughtful about it. Show me a day in your life and I will tell you about your worldview. What is it that you spend your time and your money on? If I am able to see that, I'm going to be able to tell you something about what you believe, about your worldview. What excites you? What gives you great joy? What are you angry about? What are you fearful about? Those things will tell me about your worldview. Now, here's the next one. I'm on item 6 in your handouts, page 2. Why do you believe what you believe? Now, this is actually a very, very deep question. So think about that one for a while. Why do you believe what you believe? If you're a Christian, then the question becomes, why are you a Christian? Now, I'm not asking you, how did you become a Christian? I'm not asking you for your testimony. I am asking you, why are you still a Christian today? What has prevented you from just throwing it overboard and believing something else? Why do you believe what you believe? You can see this is quite a profound question. So press pause, think about that a little bit, and then continue. Now, there are various things that perhaps you could have answered. You could have answered something like, I am a Christian, or I am still a Christian. I believe what I believe because it changed my life. And that's a wonderful answer. But be aware that if someone's looking for something that will change their life, they do not have to go to Christianity. There are other options. So if I can just stir a bit, New Age can change your life. Cocaine can change your life. You may have answered something along the lines of, I believe what I believe because it works. And again, that's a great answer, but be aware that other things also work. So if you're looking for something that works, you don't have to go to Christianity. Yoga works, an AK-47 works, greed works, etc., etc. You may have answered something along the lines of, because I can experience it. And that's a good answer, but be aware that there are many other things that can offer you an experience. Bungee jumping can give you a great experience. Deep meditation can. Someone's surround sound home entertainment system can give them a great experience. If you're looking for experience, you don't have to go to Christianity. You can go to other places. Okay. Now, I know I'm stirring here, but what I'm trying to get to is that ultimately the answer that we give has got to have something to do with truth. I believe what I believe because it's true. It corresponds with reality. It's the way things really are. And if you're looking for truth, you have to go to biblical Christianity. All other options fall short. Okay? So it's not about just choosing a belief that I like, but a belief that corresponds with reality. So all the other answers are not bad answers, but just be aware of what is cause and what is effect, so to speak. If your answer was because it works, remember that the Christian faith isn't true because it works because it's true. Do you see the difference? Okay, so because Christianity is true, we expect it to work in certain ways. But just because something works doesn't yet necessarily mean it's true. So it's important which way the arrow goes, so to speak. Do I believe what I believe because I feel it in my experience? Well, the Christian faith isn't true because we experience it, but we experience it because it's true. Again, do you see the difference there? It's an important difference. Because it's true, therefore we should expect to experience it in some way. But just because I have an experience doesn't make something true. I mean, people are having all sorts of weird and wonderful experiences that are not pointers to the truth. So we need to get to the point of truth, and also of a truth, not just, true for you, true for me, but true for everyone, objectively true. Truth is true even if nobody believes it. Falsehood is false even if everyone believes it. So we are talking about truth here with a capital T. Someone once said that truth is the stuff that won't go away when you stop believing in it. Truth is something that is true for everyone. If I take an object and I hold it out and I let it go, that object is going to fall to the ground. Now, it doesn't matter whether I'm a Christian or an atheist or a Muslim or a Buddhist or whatever, that object is going to fall to the ground. Okay? There are things that are true for everyone. This is what we mean when we talk about truth. And that is what we are searching for. And I think whether we are Christians or not, what we would be hoping to do is that we say, look, there's a reality out there, but then there's our understanding, our view of that reality. And it would be our aim to make our understanding match what really is in as much as possible. That should be anyone's aim. You shouldn't have to be a Christian to aim for that. It's important then that we're able to see reality for what it really is. Because if our belief does not match reality, then sooner or later I am going to collide with reality, and that's going to hurt. If I can give a silly example, if I believe that I can walk through walls, then I am going to collide with reality at some point. Or I could have a belief about gravity where I say, nah, I don't believe in gravity. I don't feel like gravity. It's not me. It feels so oppressive. But you can see that that wouldn't be the way of wisdom. Why? Because the way I see things or believe things isn't matched with how they really are. Here's another way of illustrating what might happen if our worldview, if our belief does not match what's really out there. And I'm going to show you two videos, one in which our worldview is too limited, and the second one in which our worldview is too inflated. So here goes.
Training fleas requires a glass jar with a lid. The fleas are placed inside the jar and the lid is then sealed. They are left undisturbed for 3 days. Then, when the jar is opened, the fleas will not jump out. In fact, the fleas will never jump higher than the level set by the lid. Their behaviour is now set for the rest of their lives. And, when these fleas reproduce, their offspring will automatically follow their example.
So that's quite scary in a way, isn't it? So that's about fleas. But what if we as human beings sometimes function in that way also and miss out on so much of what life has to offer because our view of things, our understanding of things is too limited? And then here's the opposite extreme.
Pull back the tree and shoot me into the pond.
I don't know.
Well, if you're too lame to do it, we can get Ellie.
No, I can do it.
Yeah. Come on.
Have you done this before?
Ha! Only 1,000,000 times. Farther. Perfect. Fire! Yeah! I can fly! I believe I can fly!
Right, that's from one of the Ice Age movies. And yeah, I believe I can fly. Well, no, you can't. No matter, you can believe that as much as you want. If it doesn't match who you really are or how things really work, then you are going to get hurt. And one of the big issues, of course, is that we do not see things as they are. We often see things as we are. So there's the rhino painting a picture and always with their horn in the center of the picture because that's what they always see. And so we just need to be aware of that who we are actually also affects what we are seeing. Here's another way of illustrating the importance of seeing things the way they are. This person is not in a good space, right? Now, they're not seeing it totally wrong. They're getting it half right. But the fact that they are seeing in a distorted way is putting them in a dangerous place, right? This person is in danger. And just for fun, I turned it around as well. This person is also not in a good space because you can see what they are probably going to do is they're going to be living a very fearful life. They're going to be running away from everything because they are not seeing things for what they really are. So why bother with worldviews? In your handout, page 3. For one reason, I'm hoping I have already illustrated that all worldviews are not equal. Okay? Some worldviews describe reality better than others. Some worldviews are more aligned with how things really are. And so I know I'm saying something that's pretty politically incorrect, that not all beliefs are equal. But yes, they don't all match reality in the same way, and therefore our choices matter. It matters what we believe. It's possible to get something wrong or partially wrong or miss important bits. So we need to decide wisely about what we believe. Why bother with worldviews? Also, because worldviews have power. Our worldview has our buy-in and our loyalty, and hence in some ways has power over us. A worldview is a strong power either in correspondence with or in opposition to reality. So worldviews are, they're not just passive ideas, things. They are very active. They pull us into their direction. They drive our lives. Worldviews affect everything. Someone said, ideas have legs. Okay? It doesn't just stay an idea in our head. Ideas have legs. They then turn into our actions, into our behaviors, into how we navigate the world, how we interact with people. Worldviews affect us as individuals. Worldviews also affect us as communities and societies as a whole. And in your notes, I've given you a sort of a detailed list of some of the effects that our worldviews have. Now, again, this is not in your handout, but I thought I'd throw this in as a bonus question. Given what we've said about worldviews and how we see things, do you think that your worldview can also affect how you read the Bible? Think about that for a moment. Now, just to illustrate that, here is an example. This question was asked in a study to people in various countries around the globe. The question is, why does the prodigal son end up in the pig pen? Okay, so you know the story from the Gospel of Luke. The prodigal son ends up eating pig food. What happened there? Why did it happen? And they asked this to people around the planet. And then, for example, people in the USA tended to answer, well, because he squandered his money. Whereas people in Russia tended to answer, because there was a famine. And people in Tanzania mostly answered, because no one fed him. Now, who is right? Well, how do we figure that out? Let's have a look at the text. So here's the text from Luke 15. Verse 13 says, not long after that, the younger son got together all he had, set off for a distant country, and there squandered his wealth in wild living. Well, there we go. The Americans were correct. Is it quite that simple? Because read on, the very next verse. After he had spent everything, there was a severe famine in that whole country, and he began to be in need. And the very next verse, so he went out and hired himself out to be a citizen of that country, who sent him to his field to feed pigs. He longed to fill his stomach with the pods that the pigs were eating, but no one gave him anything. So all three answers are actually correct answers. Now, if you're anything like me, you would probably have all the time, you've read this parable so many times, but your focus was on one of them. In my case, the first one, the squandered his wealth, to the extent that I almost like read past the other ones. And again, that's quite scary, that our worldview, our come from, our prior beliefs can actually affect which parts of the Bible we emphasize and which parts we de-emphasize or don't even really see. So perhaps just as an encouragement to us to be very, very careful to read properly and especially the bits that are difficult for us, or especially the bits that don't seem to match my prior beliefs, or what I think about things, or who I think God is, or what I think our mission is, etc. Back in your notes, item 9, the power and importance of ideas. You will, I'm sure, be familiar with the account of Genesis 3 when things went wrong. But notice how things went wrong. Okay? So the serpent goes to the woman, and what does he do? He sort of goes, did God really say? And then further on he says, no, you will not surely die. So he basically, you can see what he's doing there. He's not, Satan could have gone, okay, what am I going to do with Adam and Eve? No, I'm going to cause harm on them, or I'm going to afflict them with some disease, or I'm going to make the earth swallow them, or something like that. He didn't do any of those things. What he did is he planted an idea, and in this case, a wrong idea. He planted a lie in this case. So a lot of, when we're talking worldviews, we are talking very much, I think, in the space of ideas. Have a look at 2 Corinthians 10. For though we live in the world, we do not wage war as the world does. The weapons we fight with are not the weapons of the world. On the contrary, they have the divine power to demolish strongholds. And what are those strongholds? Verse 5, we demolish arguments and every pretension that sets itself up against the knowledge of God, and we take captive every thought to make it obedient to Christ. So this is a spiritual warfare passage, right? But how does this passage describe spiritual warfare? It describes a battle in the realm of ideas. Okay, it's about arguments and pretensions and the knowledge of God. Okay, we take captive every thought to make it obedient to Christ. Have you ever thought of spiritual warfare in that way? Famous verse in Romans 12, do not conform any longer to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Then you will be able to test and approve what God's will is, his good, pleasing, and perfect will. So how do we get transformed? Well, through the renewing of our minds, okay, of how we understand, think about, see, believe things. And then also, how do we love God? Well, love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength, basically with all of us, with every part of us, including our minds. Why bother with worldviews? Why do we study worldviews? Well, I'm going to give you similar 3 answers than the answers I gave in the session, in the introduction to EGW. We bother with worldviews for our own growth and transformation, so that we're able to be purposeful about where our life is going. Think of that Romans 12:2 passage, to be able to discern what's good and what's not good for us, to see things more like God sees them, which means seeing things the way they really are. Why do we bother with worldviews? Well, to reach out to others with the gospel, pointing to the truth, pointing to him who said, I am the truth. And to do that well, we need to understand what we think and what others think. Basically, our worldview and theirs. We need to be able to bridge worldviews. We need to be able to connect to people where they really are and in the way that they currently understanding the world. Now, if we don't watch it, what can happen to us is that we think we're building a bridge, but we're not. Let me again give you a half-silly, well, it's not actually a silly example, but if, for example, I go to my Hindu friend and I tell him or her, you need to be born again, how is that going to land? Now, I don't know how much you know about Hinduism, but part of the Hindu belief is that is the idea of reincarnation, that you keep getting dying and born into a new body, and you need to go through this experience until you have been perfected, until you have sort of worked off all your sin, except their word wouldn't be sin. It would be karma. And so to them to have to be born again and again and again is actually a bad thing. It's what they're trying to escape. Their view of the equivalent of heaven is being able to escape this constant cycle of having to be born again. So now I come with my Christian lingo and tell them you need to be born again. How's that going to land if I don't understand where they're coming from? It's not going to land as good news to them. So can you see it's important how we able to understand not just our own worldview, but also that of others, so that we can make a meaningful connection. And then thirdly, why bother with worldviews? Well, to be salt and light in our society or in our nation. Okay, so salt preserving, light guiding, to play a constructive role in transforming and preserving our society, to be able to communicate our standpoint effectively, to be able to speak in a way that people will listen and that makes sense to them. If you want to change reality, then surely you need to understand what that reality looks like. Otherwise, you're going to think you are doing something, but you're not. So it's important. Our worldview is important in terms of being salt and light also. And then I also had a list of things of why we do not study worldviews. And again, I'm not going to read all these out. You can read them yourselves. So always keep in mind that the reason that we do study worldviews is so that we are able to engage people and culture better. We do not study worldviews so that we can just moan about darkness in a more informed way. We are studying worldviews so that we can be the light. So if you are going to fall into any of these traps through a better understanding of worldviews, then I actually have done you a disservice. Okay? These things are not the reason we study worldviews. We want to study worldviews so that we can engage. Okay, we're near the end. Just to firm up some of that, perhaps some examples. How would you answer this question? I'm on page 4 in your handout. What is the most important thing? What is your answer to that question? Now, a typical Western answer would be, well, the individual is the most important thing. The individual is primary. I'm number one. Perhaps a typical African answer would be the community. The community is what matters the most. Now, what would you say a Christian or a biblical answer might be? And I'm hoping that your answer is God, right? God is the most important thing. And because God is the most important thing, therefore, both the individual and the community have importance in their right place under God. This is an example to me of how the Christian or the biblical answer isn't just a nice in-between some of the other answers that we can give, but it's on a different level altogether. Here's another one. When it comes to dealing with a problem, how do we generally tackle a problem? The typical Western answer might be to say, okay, well, what caused it? The belief in natural cause and effect. So why did I get malaria? Well, because the mosquito bit me. And perhaps the more traditionally African answer might be not what caused it, but asking the question, who caused it? Okay, who sent the mosquito in my example? And you can see that there, it's more of an awareness of a supernatural or a personal type of a reason. Now again, what is the Christian or the biblical view on that? And here I would hope that you would have your eyes and ears open for both. Right? So the reality that we live in is a mix of nature and supernature. So we would keep our eyes open for both of these. Sometimes the natural explanation is the more obvious one, and sometimes the supernatural is the one that lends itself more. But we would be on the lookout for both. Okay? Our worldview is able to see both. Next one, which of the following best describes your worldview? I am not acceptable to God, or I am acceptable to God. And let's unpack that a little bit more. I'm acceptable to God because I am a good person, or I'm acceptable to God because Jesus bore my sin. And again, I'm hoping you're able to see how it matters which one of these we choose. Those are three very different lives, three very different mindsets, depending on which one of these you choose. And I'm hoping that you are choosing the last one. Which of these best describes your worldview? God is supreme, or God is not supreme? I'm hoping you choose the first one, but now let's unpack that first one a bit more. Because God is supreme, nothing else is important, or because God is supreme, everything has significance. See the difference there? Now, you will find both of these worldviews within Christianity, but I think the one is more faithful to reality than the other one is. So I know that I started off my Christian journey in an environment where the first one tended to be the one that was believed. But more and more, I'm beginning to suspect that the second one is actually the one that is true. And notice the difference between the two, because the first one is basically a view or a belief that is going to lead us to disengage, whereas the second one is going to lead us to engage. It makes all the difference. Which of the following best describes your view? Work is a curse. Sorry, this is not in your handout. Or work is a means to earn money. Which one would you choose? Now, hopefully you're saying neither. You're looking for a third option, right? So here's your third option. Work is a way to worship God. Now, we will look at the subject of work quite a bit more in this course as well. But even at this level, again, these are three very different lives. It matters which one of these you choose. Actually, for those of us who've been in the working world, it's actually pretty clear in most cases which one of these a person has chosen. You can see that just by the way they work. And just imagine how different a country we would be if more people would get the third one. Okay? We've got a lot of Christians in South Africa. Just imagine that more and more Christians are able to see the third one as the correct one. It would change our country. It would. So I've got a little bit more for your own reading in the handout as well. And then, as always, well, I think so far as always, right? There's a reflection page as well, which I very much recommend you do. Now, next week, having understood worldviews in general, we're going to have a look at what a biblical worldview is. And until then, allow me to pray. Lord, it's important. I think we can see the importance of being able to understand and see and interpret correctly. And often we miss things we don't see right. We don't see you for who you are. We don't see ourselves properly or completely, or other people, or just generally the world in which we live. And we do pray that we would be able to grow in our ability to see things the way they really are, to see things the way you want us to see them. And Lord, that as a result of that, we are also able to engage in the way that you would like us to engage. For this we pray in the precious name of your Son. Amen.